Hello and welcome back for part 4 of my 6-part mini-series on camera tutorials. I'm Professor Toybox, and of course I've got Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey with me. Today we're going to look at the 4th and last type of camera that's available in the toy box, and that is the sidestep camera. And I'll go ahead and place that over here. You can see that's located in the Creativity Toys drawer along with the other cameras. And I'll point it at that button over there. And just like the other cameras, can't use it unless you activate it, so we'll go ahead and hook it up to our button. So new logic connection when pressed. And we'll come over to the camera, and you can see it has the same two behaviors as all the other cameras, activating, which turns it on, and deactivating, which turns it off. So I'm going to hook the button up to activate it. And this camera works very similar to the bird's eye camera that we looked at last time, except it provides a view from the side instead of above. And so that makes it good for platforming type games like Finding Dory or fighting games like Marvel Battlegrounds. But it isn't limited to just that. So we push the button, and as you can see, this camera view looks at the player from the side. And as the player moves, the camera follows them. Now the name of the camera is a bit misleading though, because it doesn't just move from side to side. It also moves into the background and out of the background. It's maintaining the same distance away from Mickey no matter where he runs. Really it's just looking in one direction. That's really all the camera view does. And just like the angled camera and the bird's eye camera, we come into spark mode here. The location where you place it doesn't really matter, except of course for setting the zoom distance if you have that property set, which it is by default. But I'll come over here and move this camera over that way. And then we'll come and push the button. And as you can see, it's basically like I never moved it. So it's always centered on the player no matter where the player goes. So where I place that camera doesn't really matter. Now, just like the bird's eye camera and the angled camera, the orientation of this camera does matter. And so let's go ahead and just bring this back over this way. And I'm going to turn the camera facing that direction. And now we'll come and push the button one more time. And now you'll notice that the angle of the camera has changed. So even though the location of the camera doesn't matter, the orientation of it does. We saw that again with the angled camera and the bird's eye camera, and the same's true of this one as well, because the orientation of the camera determines which way the view faces. So we'll go ahead and put this back. And let's look at the properties next. So the properties on the sidestep camera are pretty much the same as the ones we've already seen. And it's very similar to the bird's eye camera. So once again we have the defined duration, and if I turn that on, then after so many seconds, whatever I set this bar to, that's how many seconds it'll be before that camera automatically turns itself off after I activate it. And the camera start transition and end transitions are the same. And let's see if we can get the swing transition to work with this one. I'm not hopeful, but that particular transition's a little buggy, as I've said. And once again, it does a cut, not a swing. So one of these days, I'll see if I can get that thing to work, at least so I can demo it. But again, getting it to work consistently and predictably has not been easy. So I'll go ahead and put that back to cut. For the camera type, once again, we have follow, which is the default, and stationary. And stationary, of course, works as the same as you've seen with the other cameras. So when we push the button, the camera doesn't follow Mickey. So this time I can run right up to the camera. Hello. close up, and run away. I can go off screen and it doesn't follow me. So I'll go ahead and exit out of that view and come back over to the camera properties, and I'll put that back to follow. All right. You'll notice again there's no camera target property. So just like the angled camera and the bird's eye camera, this camera will only look at the players. The zoom distance behavior, just like you've seen before. So if we turn that off, then it uses the distance that I set here. And once again, the units on this is 4 units per block. So zoom distance of 20 is about 5 blocks, or about right here as we saw in an earlier video. And so Mickey should appear a lot closer to the camera this time. And he does. So that works the same. And the vertical and horizontal offsets work the same too. So this basically just controls where Mickey is within the frame of the camera, within the view. So vertically it's going to, well, let's just go ahead and demo. So we'll set this to 5. It's easier to show than explain. I'm a visual guy, so pictures do more for me than words. So here it kind of looks like the camera is sitting up higher than it is. And so instead of Mickey being right in the middle of the screen, he's near the bottom. And so this can be useful if you're in a level where you're climbing, because now you can kind of see what's coming above you. And the horizontal property works the same way. It just puts him off to one side or the other of the screen. And I've demoed that for the other cameras, so I don't think I need to do that again here. And the last option would be the player viewports. And again, by default, it's the triggering player. And all players puts the same camera view in each screen, and we've seen that demoed in the earlier videos. And once again, the shared viewport is really the interesting one that I want to show. And to demo that, we'll need a second player. So I'm going to go ahead and put Jessie on the base, and we'll bring her in. And we push the button. And now you can see she's actually behind me. And that's really interesting how far that zoomed out. So that behavior's kind of different, isn't it? And it might be because I left that zoom distance property off. Let's go ahead and put that back. So as you notice, the camera backed up quite a ways. And even though the distance on this is set to 20, it zoomed out pretty far, and I'm not exactly sure why. I think that might be a bug. Again, the idea is to try to keep both players in the view, and this shouldn't have made a difference because, again, it's trying to keep both players in view. But let's just see if that makes any difference at all. But again, that's an interesting behavior that you don't see with those other cameras. And so now for some reason it's zoomed way out. And I think what it did was it zoomed out to be the maximum of the maximum distance for the shared viewport. And just assuming that both players are going to move far away. And so it put the camera out at that distance, and now the camera is only going to move back and forth with respect to that. And to test that, let's go ahead and come in here, and we'll go down to the shared viewport properties. And let's take that maximum zoom down to, say, 30. So that should keep it from zooming out very far in order to keep both players in view. And so now when we push the button, yeah, you'll notice now the distance is a lot closer. So the sidestep camera rather than zooming in and out dynamically to keep both players in view, it automatically zooms itself out all the way to that maximum distance. And then that way it's just moving back and forth. But what's interesting is it does follow me this direction and keep that same distance. And we're able to get closer to Jessie. So you can see that only seems to apply to player 1. So it's really kind of strange how the shared viewport works with the sidestep camera. So let's go ahead and have Jessie drop out just to make this a little easier as we close. And we'll take one look at the logic connections, and then we'll wrap this up. So if we look under new logic connection, we see the same 4 trigger signals that we've seen on the other cameras. So it'll broadcast this one when the camera's turned on, that one when the camera's turned off, and these 2 when the player enters and exits the screen. And you can hook up other toys to those signals as needed. And that's pretty much it for the different kinds of cameras that are available. Next week, we'll start looking at some advanced camera techniques that will allow you to take certain kinds of shots. Until then, I want to thank you for watching and remind you to subscribe to my channel or follow me on my blog so you don't miss the next episode. That's all for me today. I'll see you next time.